G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it.
Welcome everyone. Today I'm interviewing Mike Michalowicz, who is the author of multiple books and keynote speaker based in New Jersey in the USA. So thanks for your time, Mike.
Mick, it's a joy to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, now I've been looking forward for this for ages. I guess as a reformed accountant, your profit first approach is certainly counterintuitive. So we'll unpack that shortly. And I think Justin Bowman from Thriday, who's a partner of Grow a Small Business, who introduced us, which their platform is certainly predicated on the profit first approach. So to kick things off, Mike, just give our audience a bit of a background about yourself and what you're all about.
Sure, and thanks for referencing Justin. I just spent some time with him down in Melbourne, as in Geelong, and we spent a few days together. So I'm an entrepreneur my entire life, but I think the story of significance, you can see him strategically positioned behind me. I became an author about 15 years ago. I define the mission as eradicating entrepreneurial poverty. So many entrepreneurs start a business with the aspiration of being financially free, personally free, to have impact. And yet most entrepreneurs never achieve financial freedom. We work insane hours, compromising everything in our life for the job, and we don't have impact as a result. And I lived that life for too long. I had a awakening, a come to Jesus moment, where I said, I'm going to devote my life to fixing this selfishly for my own entrepreneurial endeavors. I'm still an entrepreneur today. I own multiple businesses, and to serve anyone that I can in this process of discovery. And I've discovered, profit first as an example, it's a lot of things that we've historically followed actually do not serve us. And most of my books investigate what we think is the truth and what the reality is of perhaps an alternative truth that can serve us better.
Yeah, no, that's great. So the book Profit First, I guess unpacks the formula, I guess, that you sort of use, and like I say, as a reformed accountant, it's always been sales less expenses equals profit.
Sure.
Now you've flipped that on its head, so maybe just give us a bit of insight into that.
Yeah. So that traditional formula is logical. You have turnover, and you subtract the expenses you incur to generate that kind of revenue, and what's left over is profit. So mathematically, it makes sense. And so I don't dispute that in any regard.
No.
But behaviorally, it's a bad formula. And that's the whole argument of profit first. It's human nature when something comes last to mean it's insignificant. So if I say my health matters to me, I would never say my health matters so much I've decided to put it last. Those are incongruent. It's absurd to say that. I love my family and therefore I put them last. That makes no sense. If your health matters, you put it first. If you love your family, you put them first. And if you care for your profit, it needs to come first. Now, the vernacular, the terms we use for profit, sometimes we call it the year end, the final take, the bottom line. These are all terms for last. And it's the human behavior that when something comes last, it gets delayed, the mañana syndrome. It can wait till tomorrow. So many entrepreneurs, while they try to grow their business, they look and there's no profit at the end of this quarter. And they say, well, maybe next quarter, or maybe next quarter, or maybe next year. And they keep on delaying it. And it becomes a point of ultimately frustration and sometimes dire straits. But we keep delaying it because that's what we've been told is it will happen if you simply increase revenue and manage those expenses. The reality is when something comes first, it gets prioritized and gets addressed. So what I teach in Profit First is every time you have revenue deposited into your company, take a percentage of that revenue, just like you would with your GST or some other tax liability that you have to reserve, hide that money away. It has an obligation. And if you remove your profit first, then what's left over is what's available to operate the business. And so the sophisticated or full rollout of Profit First, we have revenue come in, we take our profit, we take compensation to pay the owner for the work they do, which is different than profit. We take tax liabilities, the GST and so forth, hide that away. And then you'll see that maybe I had $1,000 deposited today. I don't really have $1,000 to spend. After I take these initial deductions, I have 400 or 600 to spend. And you start working within the confines of what's truly available. The final point is, if you want to have a 15% profit for your business consistently, take 15%, hide that money away, and then your business will tell you what you must work with to make that 15% a reality.
Yeah, and to be fair to say, it's not dissimilar sometimes that I'm sort of confronted with in businesses, is they don't pay themselves an appropriate wage where they're an employee either. So I guess it's sort of both those aspects of profit and their wages.
That's right. That's right. And here's what the distinct difference is. Profit is a reward for taking the risk of starting a business that can employ individuals, including yourself. You're giving yourself a job and maybe other people a job. And so, Mick, as a business owner yourself, you are a rarity. It's about 17% of the population that ever takes the risk of starting a business. It's about 20% of those people that can do it on a sustainable basis. So net effect is 3% of people really pull off creating a business that works. And that means 97% of the population is looking for good jobs with good companies to do good things and live a good life. Our job is to create these jobs, and our reward is a profit share for taking that risk. The work we do within the business, if we employ ourselves within the business, if you had to replace yourself, what would you have to pay that person? That's the reasonable wage, and that's the wage you deserve for the work you do. So wages for ourselves is income for work. Profit is reward for risk.
Yeah, and I think many times business owners sort of don't necessarily understand that, and just sort of it gets very messy in their own mind. And like you said, there's sort of psychology behind this, which is awesome. And as I understand it, your principle is based on the principle of Parkinson's law. So can you just please unpack that for us a bit?
Yeah, sure. So Parkinson was a theorist in the 1950s, and what he discovered is the classic economic curve of where there is more demand, supply will meet demand, is the case only in unique circumstances. He said it's human behavior that's usually the reverse. And what he says is the more supply of something, the more consumption will increase because there's more available. So the classic studies he did were around time. If you and I are discussing a contract and I say, I'll get you the proposal or the agreement within one day, I will likely work through the evening or do whatever's necessary to get to you by the next day because that was my commitment. But if you and I, the same people, have the same conversation about the same parameters, but I say, give me 1 week, it'll likely take me a week. So in that case, the supply of time in this case expanded. And so my consumption expanded. I got time, I don't have to rush through it, and it gets delayed. And the same is with money. The more income that a business generates over time, the more expenses we incur because we're having an increase in supply of cash, the consumption increases, and it's a behavioral tendency. So we don't even notice it. But any of your listeners can think about it right now. Have you noticed over time your income, hopefully to increase in your organization, have you noticed that your spend has increased almost uncannily at the same rate? And if that's the case, it's not that there's some weird divine force causing this. It is Parkinson's law. Our behavior is to consume what's in front of us. And you'll see this over and over. I'll give one more just practical example. Regardless of how big the closet is in your home, chances are it's packed to the gills. And I've even noticed my own homes. We moved a few years back and we got a larger closet in our bedroom. And sure enough, it is packed. But if we had a smaller closet, we would vet out the clothing that we're not wearing, my wife and I. So the space dictates the usage of it. Same thing with money, more spend. The beauty of Profit First is because we take off the profit, we peeled off the income as it gets deposited, we're constraining the amount of money available. And sure enough, behaviorally, we'll control our spending accordingly.
Yeah, and I personally got an example of that where, a few years ago now, my son's finished private school, so I'm thinking I've got all this extra money to spend, but don't know where it's gone. So
it's all gone, right?
Well,
and the
exactly.
question is, where'd it go?
Where'd it go?
It's almost
Exactly.
magical.
Yeah.
It's almost magical. The funny thing also I just want to point out, Mick, is the reverse is true too. Once we start intentionally preserving and reserving this money before we give ourselves access to it, it feels like it magically appears. While in this case, if your son's finishing school, the money's magically disappeared. These are subconscious behaviors typically that we are spending the money, and so therefore we don't even notice. In the case where we take our profit first and hide it from us, we'll be often shocked how much money we can save, and that it doesn't have any negative impact on our business or our lifestyle.
Yeah, so I guess with the business introducing the profit first approach, there's obviously discipline involved with respect to making sure you do what your I guess approach is all about. So can you sort of share some insights into that and maybe some tips as much as to help business owners?
For sure. So the first thing is we want to channel behavior as opposed to try to change behavior. It's very difficult to change who we are. So one anecdote around this is I intended to be physically fit. About 15, 20 years ago, I committed to this to be active. And the first attempt I had was through discipline, and I failed very quickly. The first day I got to the gym. The second day, I barely got in there. The third day, I was like, not today. But what I did is I watched my behavior. I'd wake up in the morning, drink a cup of coffee, a long black, then, which we don't have here in the States. Then I would read the paper, and then I would skip the workout again. But I noticed in this pattern of waking up in the morning, every morning I go to the bathroom. So I set up a behavioral intercept. Behavioral intercept is where you look at an existing pattern and you put something in there that channels you or disrupts you to put you back on the path to where you want to go. I put my gym shoes on top of my toilet seat. So the only way I could wake up and go to the bathroom in the morning was by grabbing my gym shoes. And that started a cascade of effects where I'd go to the gym. Most business owners, I see this internationally, log into their bank accounts and make decisions based upon their bank balance. And we've been told in traditional accounting, that's the worst thing to do. Create these different statements and documents. And my argument is that's what we naturally do. Therefore, we should channel it because changing ourselves through discipline is very difficult. So we set up multiple accounts at your bank level. You can't do this. You can do it on a spreadsheet, but it won't serve you. You can do it through your accounting system, but it won't serve you if that's not where you naturally go. This is the bathroom, and we're putting the sneakers there. So we're going to set up multiple accounts at your bank. This intercepts you. Every time you log in, now instead of seeing one account with your deposits, you now see multiple accounts. The money then will be allocated out of those accounts. Now you can do it on a percentage basis, and you can manually do this. But to your point, we have to have discipline. Automation is the new discipline. So at your bank, set up the script of where it moves the dollar amount. Some banks even allow you to do a percentage-based allocation. Thriday helps with this. And so we can start doing these allocations. And now you're automating the behavior to your advantage.
Do you find it difficult to define and execute a clear strategy for your small business? Does your team support your strategy? You know you are ready to create the right environment to boost your team's performance. Our 80-day business transformation program is designed for small business owners like you, with 5 to 30 team members who are ready for growth. Every day, you'll receive a short email with a handful of growth actions. You'll invest 30 minutes each week in your one-on-one coaching session, tackling your specific growth challenges with one of our experienced growth guides, business owners themselves. Boost your confidence, your team's performance, and grow your small business with ease with our business transformation program at growsmallbusiness.com.
Yeah, and I think, like you say, that's where our partners Thriday certainly come into play to automate that.
Right.
I've spoken to a few clients about this, and it's more, and I'm interested in your thoughts. A business that's not going too well, right? So they've got debt, cash flow problems, and you talk to them about introducing profit first. They go, well, we actually can't afford to actually allocate a percentage to profit and a bank account because we need it to just keep the lights on. Yeah. So what's your response to that?
Yeah, and they are part of about 40 to 50% of businesses that deploy profit first come in with a situation where they have debt. So they are common, and profit first is the solution. What we have to first understand is the fundamentals of debt. Debt is an expense that we incurred in the past that we couldn't afford or chose not to afford. But basically, we use someone else's money. The only way to pay off debt is to make more money today than we're spending. So therefore, we have excess profit to pay off debt. So the only way to eradicate debt is by being profitable. That's the first core principle.
Yep.
So what we do then is second is we set up the behavior of profit. So we go through this process of allocating a percentage toward profit every single deposit, or you can get into a periodic basis, weekly or every fortnight. Then when the money is allocated to profit, when we do the distribution, and there's a system, we suggest quarterly distributions, a portion, usually a large portion of that money is used to eradicate the debt. There's other debt management elements along the path, but a large portion of the money that's been allocated toward profit is used to crush debt. Once the debt's eradicated, you now have the behavioral pattern of profit, and the next allocation, all of it comes out to you. So the key is you got to be profitable to eradicate debt. We want to get into this pattern starting immediately, but we also acknowledge we have past sins that we need to make up for. One other element, we don't take all of the profit distribution to pay off debt. We take a large portion of it. A portion is still used to reward the business owner. We're behavioral beings, just like any other being. And if we don't get a reward and it's all deprivation, we will resist at a certain point. We'll give up on it. So when profit comes out, we suggest a percentage as minimal as 1% to 5% of the money that's allocated to a profit is used actually to reward the shareholders, the owners of the business, to celebrate in the way they see appropriate, even though they have debt they have to take care of.
Yeah, it's a good approach. Like you say, it's setting up the structure to start with, and then I guess, as you say, allocating the profit to maybe repay debt in the first instance, but I guess setting up the habit and
Right.
the system. So, yeah, that's great. I think that point about business owners being rewarded on a regular basis is, like you say, also very important. And just from I guess a confidence perspective, but I think that's probably part of why many businesses fail. Would that be your thoughts?
It is because it's this constant deprivation of profit or reward to ourselves. And we wait years for it to happen. It never does. And what happens for many entrepreneurs, and I am guilty as accused, we become resentful of the business. It's like, I started this business for financial freedom and I'm not experiencing it. I pay my employees more than I get paid. This is the worst thing ever. I'm done. I give up. And that's the ultimate shame. By rewarding ourselves, we keep ourselves engaged. By rewarding ourselves and making sure that we're in a healthy financial state, we can take care of our colleagues and our employees and our clients at the highest level. So we definitely need to reward ourselves to feel engaged. And we want to see that momentum. In the case of debt, again, we do have to address debt, but we can never skip the reward because that will all of a sudden ultimately feel punitive and will resent the business.
Yeah, I guess the drivers, as you say, for business owners to set up a business or to buy a business is all about financial freedom, but also the flexibility of time. And
Sure.
a lot tend to go down rabbit holes where they just forget about that and end up, like you say, working longer hours, getting paid less. And it's
Which is the antithesis of what they wanted, right? I want financial freedom, not worry about bills. I want personal freedom, do what I want when I want. And for most businesses, it's the literal opposite of that.
yeah.
So what I tell business owners is and what I coach them on, and we have 800,000 companies doing profit first to give context globally.
Wow.
We have offices in Sydney, Australia. What we've discovered is the rewards need to start now. What's interesting is profit first does not need to be perfected. We don't need to nail the numbers from day one. We don't have to hit these great profit percentages. We just have to get started now and slowly build our way. I would say most of those businesses, the rollout of the full implementation of profit first happened over a year or maybe even two, but they did get started today. There's no excuse not to start immediately.
Yeah, good point. So what are some of the biggest challenges that small business owners face when they're implementing the profit first system?
They'll get resistance from their accountant saying, this is not how accounting is done. And first of all, we acknowledge the accountant is right. That's not how accounting is done, but this is not accounting. This is cash management. It's a tool that sits on top of accounting. So your accounting doesn't change at all. It's just setting up multiple accounts. Some people feel, oh my gosh, if I have 5 or 10 accounts, the reconciliations are going to be a nightmare, just sorting out where all the money is. The reality is it actually makes the process simpler because each account has a responsibility. One is to pay the owner. So we know money pulled from there is to pay the owner. Another one is to pay the operations of the business. So we know what those expenses are. Another one could be payroll for employees. So by pre-categorizing what things are, reconciliations actually become easier. It rarely takes more time. It usually takes about the same amount of time or even a little bit less. I think another struggling point is people say, well, I'll just try this on a spreadsheet. And now you are not setting up a behavioral intercept. You're putting your gym sneakers down the hallway in the guest room where you never go. Don't expect yourself to run into those things and grab them. So we have to work within who we are. And I guess the last one is the belief that since I haven't been profitable, I can't be profitable. And the argument I say here is if you haven't been profitable, the system you're following is not working. We got to try a new system. So we're not going to wait till you become profitable to implement Profit First. Profit First is going to force the hand for profitability by taking it first. And then that mandates you consider, what do we need to change in my business to support the profit I'm taking first?
Yeah. And it aligns well with Grow Small Business, our business transformation program, because I guess it's the same philosophy in setting up the systems and the structures to allow more profit, which then can feed in nicely to the profit first approach. So there's a nice integration between our approaches, which is great.
Yeah, they work in concert. Profit First forces the consideration of profit. Your systems enable people to discover where the profit is. So you're forcing the conversation, you're exploring it and enacting it, and then you're taking it, and it just keeps working in concert.
Exactly. Yes, that's great. So, Mike, just to wind up, could you share a success story where a small business has maybe turned around its profitability by adopting the profit first approach?
Yeah, we have one in Canberra, so why not talk about them? In Canberra, or in the outskirts, there was a horse farm, and I don't know if they were raising thoroughbreds, but they're raising a certain type of horse and training them. And what was interesting about this story was the emotional shift. So it was owned by a couple, a married couple running this business, and the business was struggling, not profitable. And what they shared with me, and we had some email communications about this, is the conflict they would have. I never set out for Profit First to save marriages, but what I found is the implementation of Profit First invokes also a conversation when there's multiple owners. So when they started taking a Profit First, they said, well, now that we're taking this profit, there's less money to operate the business. What's the proper way of operating the business? And so this couple had a much more empowering conversation. It used to be accusatory, like, where's the money? It's your fault. You're doing this. Now they became teammates as opposed to enemies. And they said that Profit First transformed their marriage. The business got very profitable, and then they were able to grow the right way as opposed to just any random way. And there's countless stories, but that was just one that came to mind immediately.
Yeah, that's a good one. Obviously, being an Aussie business, that's great. So, just to finish up, what's one thing a small business owner should do after listening to our chat?
The one thing you should do is get yourself to your bank immediately. Maybe you can do it online, minimally. But this is okay to do this. It's just set up one account and call it profit. And I challenge you to allocate just 1% of your income there. And the reason is by tomorrow morning, within 24 hours of listening to this podcast, you can have a profit account set up and be allocating a small percentage of income without having any negative impact on your business. In fact, you just keep operating the same way because 1% off the top line is nothing. But what will happen is very quickly, you'll notice, my gosh, I have some profit accumulating, and that will get your mindset into it. I can't guarantee it's worked for every business on the planet. I think it works for most, but you got to prove it to yourself. And I think it would be a shame if you don't at least try out the basic minimal step, which is setting up that one account. Yeah,
that's a great, simple approach from here. And obviously read your book as well, which will promote the show notes. And if they need a platform, they've got Friday to lean on as well. So
exactly.
Yeah. So look, appreciate your time, Mike. It's been great to have a chat, and maybe we'll catch up when you're in Australia next.
I would love it, Mick. Thanks for having me on your show.
Thanks, mate.
We'd greatly appreciate you taking a couple of minutes to leave our podcast a review on iTunes. If you don't have an account, simply follow us on Spotify. You'll help other small business owners find the cast and valuable content our guests share.